Is it hard to be a man? And then, is it hard to be a black man?
Yes and yes. No, bro, if she make more money than you, man, you get the kids dressed, you have her coffee ready when she leave out that door. It's a partnership. When you pull up at the house, the kids here, you get out of the car, they disappear. They go upstairs to their room. They don't even want to be around. And that hurt his feelings when he finally did come in and when he realized the dog and the kids disappear when he come home. That's not healthy. I had to rise above that and see my setback as an opportunity for a comeback.
Thank you for joining us today for Say Less Unscripted with Jackie and Milton. One of our guests today is Kelvin Smith, great friend of mine, author, husband, father, and has definitely made some huge impact on young men in our community. And I said author, I want to say this. Yes, I failed, but I'm not a failure is his book. So we definitely want to delve into that today as well. And we talk a little bit about men, about masculinity in 2025 and some things we've seen. So welcome to our Say Less Unscripted show.
Thank you very much, Milton, Jackie, both. Pleasure for me to be here.
Okay, so let's get down to business.
Okay.
We have seen the MeToo movement come around, and we know that it's made huge changes for women. Do you feel like with the MeToo movement that it also had some negative impacts on men, how masculinity was viewed, and also how men are in 2025?
Probably, but let me start with this. I think the MeToo movement was a great thing because it allowed women to finally be able to come forward and have an opportunity to address some of the harassment, abuse that they have experienced. For men, I believe it gave men an opportunity to expand their masculinities. Of course, some men probably saw it as a negative, but I think it gave us an opportunity to expand our masculinity. We have an opportunity to be more respectful. We have an opportunity to show more empathy. We have an opportunity to be more aware. And I think our whole integrity can be shown more through this from the MeToo movement.
I get you. Okay.
You know, I was actually in the automotive business for about 13, 14 years. And I experienced the Me Too, but I didn't know that I was actually experiencing bad behaviors because I was thinking, well, if I go say something, I may not have a job. I actually remember getting interviewed for a company that I was getting ready to work in, and they didn't hire me because I spoke up, about misbehavior. So it was just very interesting to see, the Me Too movement come forward. But with men, especially our Black men, what are some of the things you think they experience in today's environment? Because I'm sure that it's a lot of mental things that go on that are just not spoken and no one really, realizes that.
So you're asking because of the Me Too movement or just what we deal with in the workplace environment?
Yeah, more so what are we dealing with or what are the men dealing with in the workplace environment, period? Because it has to be hard and challenging sometimes in some points.
So some people see this as men being in crisis because of what's happening in the Me Too movement and the changes that have happened. I don't necessarily see, I think there's a crisis, but I think the crisis has more to do with the transition that men are in, where there's not the status quo of the way we used to do things. I started in corporate America 40 years ago, and it was very evident that women only could go so far, right? Mm-hmm. They could maybe make it to a certain level, a manager, a second line manager, but I don't recall anyone being in third line management or director level. So for men, I think for us, we have to be in transition to understand that, hey, just because we are now, the Me Too movement is happening, we don't necessarily lose anything from this. We gain from this. And I think the whole narrative is going to have to be changed and needs to be changed.
I think this is really good. And I want to go to your book. So Milton, he was raving about your book, and thank you so much for bringing me a copy.
I have you a copy right here.
I'm so excited
Let me
to take a
slide it.
picture and for you to sign it for me.
I will do that for you.
I love it. Like I have like a little a mini library in my house. So I definitely love this. But something that actually stuck out to me was like about failure and like failing. It's been so many times in my life that I was like, I'm such a failure. And it's kind of like other people on the outside is like, girl, you're such a success. But can you go a little bit more into your book and what motivated that? Because your title really stuck out to me.
Yes, absolutely. I came up with the title of the book probably in 2019 when I was working at a place in Corinth, Texas, doing counseling, doing anger management groups. And I was telling my clients that, hey, just because that you failed, that doesn't mean you're a failure. And I had to start looking at myself because in 2018, I experienced my own failure, which is kind of what I talk about in the book with me losing my Allstate agency, getting shut down. And I felt like a failure. But I kept telling my clients this, yes, you failed, but you're not a failure. But I had to start believing that myself. Well, okay, Kelvin. But so I had the title of the book and I said, hey, one of these days, guys, I'm going to write a book about this title. But it took me 5-6 years to finally start writing and get serious about writing the book. So last year, toward the end of last year is when I got started serious about writing the book. But the main thing from the book is talking about failure. Like you, we have all, if you meet someone to say that they haven't failed at something, I would challenge them on that. We have all failed at something, whether it's relationship, a job, whatever it may be, we have failed at something. The key is that I do not let that failure define who I am. Failure is part of the process. Failure is part of the process. And that's the part that I had to understand, that failure is part of the process. And it doesn't mean a dead end. It's not the end for me. And for a long time, I was stuck and trapped in believing because I was a failure, then guess what? I felt like I couldn't go forward. I felt shame. I felt guilt. And I had to rise above that and see my setback as an opportunity for a comeback.
Like when you said that, like I think it's very important for our viewers, for us to be, real. And that's one of the reasons why Milton and I wanted to start this podcast, is to actually help other entrepreneurs. So like over the last 2 or 3 years, I'm just like, so at some point in the last 2 or 3 years, I felt like at times I was a super failure. And, what I'm learning now is like God, he doesn't do anything but utilize all of those things that happen to you to get you to your destiny today.
Amen.
For instance, I don't even know like if stuff was just so amazingly awesome, what I would have even had the time to even consider doing the podcast with Milton, And so we just kind of sat down over the last year and a half and started talking about this vision about putting the podcast together. But for me, I think that if I didn't pause, I wouldn't be blessed with this opportunity to even meet you today and talk about, your book. So we're very thankful for you to be here.
Jackie, you are so right. Listen, if I hadn't gone through the failure that I went through, I wouldn't have written this book. I would have been still skipping along thinking life is great. And in some respects, life was great, but I had to go through that setback to work on my comeback. And I don't tell very many people this, but being a counselor was not my plan. This was not what I aspired to grow up to be, was a counselor. But Milton's known me long enough to know that I am all about helping people, and especially young men. So this gave me an avenue, being a counselor, because I counsel with probably more teenagers and young adults, especially teenagers of all colors, not just our people. I accept everybody.
That's right.
And this has given me a platform to do what I truly love. My mom asked me all the time, she said, Kelvin, you sit and talk to people all day. Don't you get tired of, you walk one person out and you walk another person in? I said, Mom, it's not work. Two things. I get to meet new people and I get to run my mouth. I'm good. I'm good.
Well, you were a counselor and a teacher way before you took on the title. So for as long as I've known. So young men today that are having problems or issues with finding a job, find direction in corporate America or entrepreneurship, what would you say to them?
Unfortunately, this is just what I refer to as a Kelvinism, which is what I think. There's so many old narratives out there of the way we as men are supposed to lead, that we can show examples of leadership. So when young men come in, they have great ideas or whatever. I'm always encouraging them. They like, oh, but Mr. Kelvin, I was like, bro, you're 22 years old. So the first thing is, I think you have to learn to adapt. You got to adapt to this environment that we have changed from, my first job at IBM in 1984. It's not the same, right? So I have to be adapt. No, not only do I have to have some type of technical skills to do something nowadays, but whatever it is, I have to be willing to adapt to what's happening around me. And the other thing is, I have to have I'm not going to quit mentality. And what I tell people, there's no quit in my DNA. As I talked about in the book, my oldest son would always ask me, but Daddy, would you play Michael Jordan? I'm like, yeah. He beat you. I'm like, yeah, but I won't quit. Ball out. Let's go.
I love it.
I'm not going to quit. So I have to be adaptable, and I have to also be willing to fail sometime, and it's okay. And know that even if I fail, this, as I said earlier, this is a setup for a comeback. This is the way I have to look at it. But I can't quit, because otherwise I'm bouncing from this to that, or I tried that for 6 months, that didn't work. I'm going to pivot to this. And sometimes pivot is good if I've done my work here and I do need to pivot to something else. But I can't just because I didn't succeed at this, just give up and move on.
As far as like coaching young men and then men, how do you, as far as a woman goes? So I'm a very independent woman. I own my own company, very successful. How would you coach a young man to deal with a woman that's, very self-driven? Because at the same time, being a driven woman and a leader, I can also follow, and I do. Any good leader does.
Should. Absolutely. I would start off by answering your question by saying this, and that is, I have not just young men, I have older men who come into my office and they have alpha women, right? And especially when maybe the man has lost his job, or he's gotten downsized and he's had to take a different job, and the wife is now making the most money, right? So she was already an alpha woman, right? But now she's really alpha to the second power, alpha woman. So when he come in my office, he's like, hey, Kelvin, man, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to. But I always remind him, I say, hey, you cannot lose your confidence in who you are. Money don't define me. I had to realize that. And because when I was young, I was hustling, trying to make money, and that's great, but it doesn't define me. So even if I'm not married to necessarily an alpha woman, but I know plenty of work with plenty of alpha women in corporate America, and even people who come into my office now. So for men, I believe you have to be confident in who you are. Just like if you had a wife that made twice as much money as you, some men would not be able to handle that. No, bro, if she made more money than you, man, you get the kids dressed, you have her coffee ready when she leaves out that door. It's a partnership. It's a partnership. So even if an alpha woman like yourself, it has to be given confidence. I got to be confident in who I am. You're confident in who you are as an alpha woman. I'm still going to see myself as an alpha man, but when you have two alphas, sometimes here's but, right? There's just some disagreement. But to me, that's where in my counseling, I always talk about the 3 C's, and that is communication, connection, and compromise. So if I got 2 alphas, whether it's 2 men or 2 women or whatever, we still have to have healthy communication first and foremost. If we have healthy communication, then we can connect. Yeah. We can connect. And then if we connect in the right way, then guess what? Now we can compromise. All right, babe, you want to do this right here? Go ahead. We can roll the way you want to do it.
So drive a little more into what healthy masculinity looks like then. Because I think you started with the healthy piece. So now go back and drive that point of what healthy masculinity looks like then.
To continue that, I think for healthy masculinity, it requires us as men. I'm talking about us as men. If it's going to be healthy, kind of going along the lines of what I was saying, the first C, I would go back, if we're going to be healthy, we have to be able to collaborate on some things. And to me, everything starts with communication. If it's going to be healthy, guess what? I have to be respectful. If I'm going to have healthy masculinity, Milton, I have to be respectful. I have to be aware. I have to be aware of the things that I'm saying, the things that I'm comments that I'm making. Man, it just made me think about that. It's been more than 40 years ago. I got on the elevator and I told this lady, "Man, you smell good." From Tupelo, Mississippi. I didn't think nothing about it. Next thing I know, my manager's calling me into the office. And I was like, what did I say? I told her she smelled good. But he said it was how you said it. It's like it was suggestive. I'm like, no, I just told her she smelled good.
Right.
So aware, we have to be aware. We have to have empathy for what our women deal with on a daily basis, because they deal with a whole lot of stuff that we don't even see. And the other thing is, I think we got to have integrity involved in that for us to have healthy communication, healthy masculinity.
I got you.
My mother is in the studio today, so shout out to my mom, Deborah. When growing up, I was really able to see the relationship she had with my dad. He's no longer with us, but they had such a beautiful relationship. And I was able to see the type of man he was and his foundation. And it's helped me so much to be able to deal with and work and live around men of foundation. Because, let's go back to the money thing. I think you're right about men have to be secure. Sometimes I do very well for myself, But for me, coming from humble beginnings, none of that matters to me. It's like, what is the love and the affection that, we have in our relationship? Because money comes, money goes. It's kind of like what you said, but what are some things that you think as a woman I can do to help support my man, his mental, and, help encourage him and say, hey, this is a partnership. We're doing, this together. So how can you coach me and other women that's watching on how to be a better woman and support their man?
I go back to what I said in the beginning. That is what communication, right? So, and there's nothing wrong with this. Listen, if I'm single, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking for some eye candy, right? I need something, especially as men, we're visual, right? So I see something visual and like, oh, that catches my eye. But when you guys start having in-depth conversation, you start learning about what this young man has been through. Chances are, Jackie, he has not had an opportunity to, because I know for me, look, my dad is no longer with me, but for the most part, I wasn't given emotional support growing up to understand how to communicate with people, right? And fortunately, I never heard my mom and dad say a cuss word, not to mention at each other, but not at all. They didn't argue. Honey, I think I'm right. No, I think I'm right this time. That's the way they did it. But they communicated. Now, after we went to bed, they may have went on the other side of the house and had it out. I don't know. But that's not what I experienced. But what I also did not experience was the emotional piece of this, because as men, we feel like we're supposed to provide for you. And some women don't need that. So not to provide, I got my own money. I just got back from Jamaica. I don't need that from you. But what I do need from you is the emotional piece. I need the emotion. I need you to be able to share. Listen, we grew up in a time where it wasn't cool for men to cry. Saw my dad cry all the time, usually at church, but I saw him cry all the time. I'm sure my kids have seen me cry. But that's because I know who I am emotionally now, not just, my jump shot used to be sweet, Milton. I don't know if I ever dunked on Milton or not, but
yeah, we're gonna definitely cut that part from this. I definitely know that didn't happen, but all right.
But absolutely. I mean, I think, again, I got to have communication with my partner, my potential partner. We got to talk. And I got to know where he is emotionally, not just financially. My finances that's great. You don't necessarily want to hook up with, somebody totally broke, desolate or whatever. But at the same time, you need to be rich in emotions. You need to be rich in communications.
Okay. You said rich in emotions. I got to jump in here.
Yep.
But for the young men you get to counsel, how hard is it now for a young man to approach young women in the current environment that there is, and they're making money, everything else? How hard is it?
Yes, the men and the women, because they don't know. seriously, these kids today don't know how to talk to a lady. They don't know how to talk to a guy. They're like, oh no, I can't go ask him to dance, or I can't go and up to the bar and buy him a drink. Or the guys are like, the young men are like, oh no, I ain't doing that. She need to come holler at your boy if she wanted to holler at me. But I know I'm not doing that. So even when I role play with them about ways that they can do that, oh man, Mr. Kelvin, that was back in the 80s, man. Don't nobody do that no more. I'm like, chivalry is not dead, no matter what year it is. So yeah, that's a struggle. That's a struggle for sure.
It is. Okay, so talk to me about therapy. So therapy with young men, how important is it? And what are the things that keep young men of color from seeking out therapy?
Let me start with this. The young men of color, especially, have a challenge of coming to counseling because, especially if they told their parents they come into counseling, if they told their dad they come into counseling, they told their uncle, now that gets shot down right away. You don't need to go to counseling. So that's a struggle right off the bat. But once they come into my office, I have sports paraphernalia all around my office. They come in and they start, I talk trash to them, hustle them for their tennis shoes. It kind of bring them down, and they like, oh man, this is not what I expected. And then it takes a session or two before they really, really start opening up.
Mm-hmm.
But just getting them in the door is a problem. Not just young men, Milton. I have men who wives have said, oh, you going to counseling or I'm out of here. So they come in begrudgingly or whatever. And yeah, we end up talking some trash. A lot of times the first session, we might not even talk about the issue that brought them there, because I need to build rapport with them. Once I build rapport with them, man, they'll tell me whatever I want to know.
So does it help them in the workplace?
To be able to
come in for therapy, come in for a counseling session, sit down and talk about what's going on, be able to actually open up about the things that are bothering them, the shut up pieces that you talked about. I mean, you're going to get it out one way or the other, right? You're going to get it out on the court, you're going to get it out in the gym, you're going to get it out with the wrong way that you handle it, or you're going to get it out having a conversation with somebody. So do you see a difference?
I do. And it starts with them having more confidence that they can go in and once I can express myself and my emotions, and I don't have to let them bubble over to when I'm dealing with my coworker, I can know to go when I need to talk to Milton, and Milton, hey man, you didn't get this done or whatever. I don't have to go over and slam his desk or put my finger in your face and everything. So we talk about how to communicate in a healthy manner, because that's important. Even in the workplace or at home, I have to be able to communicate in a healthy manner. So when they come back and say, hey man, listen, Chuck got on my nerves at work yesterday, but you know what? I didn't cuss him out like I normally do. I didn't put my finger in his face like that. And I tell him, hey, that's progress. That's growth. That's growth. So if we ever get to a point of where we're going to change or we're going to grow, we always want to focus on growth. Because if I'm changing, then I'm just doing something different. Whereas if I'm growing, I'm becoming someone different. And that's the key to that's why I want to try to get them to where they're growing instead of just changing.
I get you.
I've actually been taking therapy for about 3 or 4 years.
Good for you. Good.
Thank you so much. It took me a while to go, because mostly in the African American, or traditionally in the African American household, it's like, oh, go to church. And I do go to church. But one of my dearest friends were like, hey, your brain is a muscle. And so you have to work that out. And I was recently seen a YouTube video a couple of days ago, and it talked about more women go to therapy because they're trying to understand the emotional aspect behind things. But most men, especially men of color, they don't really like to go to counseling. They want to be more physical and go do physical activities, which that made me have a second respect. Because at first I'm like, why wouldn't they want to go? But it kind of made me understand, okay, well, they kind of deal with it, differently. Do you think that it's important for them to physically work themselves out and mentally work themselves out as well?
I think they do two different things, right? So for me, I can't play basketball anymore, but fortunately for Milton, I can't play basketball anymore. But seriously, I try to get to the gym 4 or 5 times a week, and I need that. But it doesn't take the place of even for the last 9 years, I have a lady that I see maybe once a month, every 6 weeks or something. I have to buy her food from Chick-fil-A. That's the only place. She's 82 years old, but that's my go-to. So that helps me. But as far as with men, especially in our community, we were not conditioned that we can go talk to someone, right? Go talk to pastor, go talk to your uncle, usually not to your dad. He's like you way down the list of people you would talk to. But even with that, we could go talk to somebody. But now, listen, I have African-American women who come into my office, and it's not about them. I need you to help me understand my husband. They're trying to understand us because there's no communication in the house. They're not on the same page about why is he so angry? So he's dealing with things at his job that he brings that anger home. So when she tried to talk to him, why don't you go talk to somebody? Well, I ain't got nobody to talk to. I'm finding nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with him. You're angry all the time, and you've taken it out on your wife and your kids. To where when you pull up at the house, the kids here, you get out of the car, they disappear. They go upstairs to their room. They don't even want to be around. And that hurt his feelings when he finally did come in, and when he realized the dog and the kids disappear when he come home. That's not healthy.
I think this is so beautiful because you're actually helping me prepare for my future king.
All right.
I'm taking notes. I'm gonna write a book and everything. I think that's really so beautiful. Like, so how would as a wife, as a sister, a niece, like, how do I encourage the men in my life? Because I have an amazing group of men that are in my life, from friends to family. How can I encourage their growth? Because you hit something about sometimes we don't know what's wrong, but we know something is wrong, and we care so much that we're like, hey, but it's like, how do we communicate and encourage, the men in our life that are foundation for us to, hey, talk about it, get help?
I would say, first of all, I have to be very patient. I have to be very patient because usually with men, if you try to force us to do something, we going to push back on you. So be patient and, give them an opportunity to, if they will confide in you and give you some information about what's going on, then let them know it's okay. This is 2025. It's okay. You going to seek counseling or someone to talk to is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. I can tell you when guys come into my office and I'm like, you don't want to be here. He's like, no, sir, I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to be here. But then by the time they leave, like, next week, I'm going to see you next week too. I'm like, well, if you want to, like, yeah, let's. So, but first, I think, like I said, I have to be patient and not try to force them into it, but instead give them an opportunity to hopefully find, hey, just like one lady said, when her husband was looking for a counselor, she's like, look, you got to find me a black man. I ain't going, he got to be black man. And I'm not driving no long way. She's like, okay, well, here's one right down the street from us. He's like, okay, I'll go. But he just came in and plopped down in the chair because he didn't want to be there. But he felt forced to go. And therefore, like I said, I think it's going to be different when it feels forced as when I feel like I'm doing this on my own.
This is helping me. Like, so with our podcast, we talk about personal and business because it all goes together. So this is actually helping me to understand, how do I coach my employees up, and even the friends and family that are in my life. So I definitely appreciate that.
I guess I want to ask you a question for the person that doesn't know, both for women and also for people that are not of color. And I say of color because we're talking about not just black, we're talking about everybody. So is it hard to be a man? And then is it hard to be a black man?
Yes and yes, because as a man, I think a lot of times we put pressure on ourselves, right, to be providers. And if we understand providing is not just about making money. Yeah, do we need money to take care of our family? Absolutely. But money is not the answer to every issue in the family. As a black man, to where I grew up, not having the greatest of everything, but I thought we was rich. I thought we was rich because my mom and dad provided so much other things that weren't tied to money. So yes, it's hard to be a man, but it's even harder, I believe, to be a black man because there's so many expectations put on us. There's so many, we get looked down, we get pigeonholed in. They thinking we're this, that we're not capable, and we are capable. So yes, absolutely, we're challenged with that. But I think there's a lot, especially in this younger generation. I think that these young men are stepping kind of stepping away from that, and they're challenging those old narratives that used to be placed on us. And I think that's positive.
So we're having this conversation and we're sitting in front of our sons and our grandsons. So what would you tell them they need to do in order to be a man that they can look back on and feel like, hey, I did accomplish where I was trying to go?
Probably first thing I would say to, being that I know your sons and you know my sons as well, I would let them know that, hey, the journey to get from where we were to where we are was not easy, but it's possible. It's possible. I think we have to decide, hey, what is it that I want out of life? Now, granted, when I was 18, 19, I wanted to be in the NBA. That was my goal. Seriously, that was my goal. But when I realized that was not going to happen, I had to pivot and do something else. So when I'm talking to my sons or my grandsons, I let them know that unlike when I was growing up, I didn't really have anybody to tell me what I could be. Only thing I knew was I'm going to college. I didn't know what I was going to major in. But let me trip out some of your listeners. In 1981, when I graduated from high school, the goal was to get a job making $20,000 a year. $20,000 a year. So when I told my son, he said, Dad, I make more than that working part-time at Walmart. I'm like, yes. So we got to make sure our kids have some goals, help them set some realistic goals, and don't shoot down their dreams. Like, nobody ever shot down my dream of wanting to be in the NBA, but I had to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to make it to the NBA. So if I'm having a conversation with my sons, your sons, our grandsons, or whatever, I'm going to encourage them to figure out what it is that they want to do. And then if I can help them achieve that, because I know what I've been through, I'm prepared now to help them reach their goals. That they don't have to go through the same struggles that I went through trying to figure it out.
So it's not a business question, but how much does I love you, hearing it and saying it, play into all the comment you just made?
Man, that's huge. That's huge. My boys grew up hearing me say that. We say that to each other. And my sons are 36 and 31. My grandson is about to be 14. If I called him right now, he would, all right, bye, Poppy, love you.
Mm-hmm.
We say that. That's important. Not something that I had growing up, but I want to make sure that my kids had it growing up. So I think that's important.
Yeah, different generation, right?
Yeah.
But it also plays into the failures and also being able to handle the failures, not only in personal, but also in business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you girded them up. Even in that conversation, that's a whole different, man, I know that I'm loved outside of whatever my accomplishment is,
Yeah,
or my failure. I know I'm loved, right?
I know I'm loved. Absolutely. And I think that's very important. That's very important.
Yeah.
Because listen, I think by doing that, we built some trust that they know. My kids knew that they could always come in my office and close the door and sit down and tell me anything. I'm going to listen. I might not like it. I might not like it. Jackie, I might not like it. But they knew that they could come in and sit down and talk to me and tell me anything. I don't think I had that with my dad.
Different generation. Definitely.
I think that was something that helped me mature as a woman as well, like hearing the word, hey, I love you, from my mom and my dad. And it actually helps me have a healthier emotional state as a woman. Moving forward and getting ready to close, I do have a couple of questions for you. On your book that you wrote, what is like the one or two things that you would take out of that book that you want to share with our audience today that you think is really important or was an aha moment for you? You really wanted to put that in the book.
The last chapter was about redefining success, because as someone that has been successful most of my life at whatever I did, I got let go from jobs, fired from jobs, laid off from jobs, but I always felt like I was successful because I tied my success to when I started making six figures or whatever. Man, I'm at six figures. But I understand that redefining my success means that I need to find some way to see myself as being successful that no one can take away from me. I redefine my success as something that no one can take away from me. So it's not tied to money. It's not tied to my my car, or anything else. It's tied to me and how I view myself as being successful. Once I reach that point, I'm free.
Sky's the
I'm free.
limit.
I'm going to see myself. That's not being arrogant at all. That's just the way I see myself as being successful, because I get to redefine my success on my terms. Doesn't matter what you think about me, how much money I make, or how little money I make. I get to redefine my success on my terms.
That's so beautiful. I felt that because let me tell you something. I think that that's kind of like the era that I'm in. So being in the automotive business for 10, 12, 13, 14 years, it was just like every month you're starting over and hustling. Like this is a male dominant job too. So I'm hustling times 10, to like be successful. And I brought that type of mindset over into my business. Now I define success so much differently now. Success to me is like taking care of myself, loving myself, being kind to others, being able to give back to people like our viewers, our community, having a peace of mind, taking moments, and best of all, being present.
Let me say something real quick, Jackie. You mentioned the word being present. That I don't think we can underestimate being present, whether it's in our job, whether it's in our relationship with our kids, whatever that looks like, being present. But guess what? Being present don't just necessarily mean I'm in the room with you, right? Being present means mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, I'm present. And when I'm present and when I'm fully present, that's awesome.
That's so lovely and joy. And I'm like, wow, I'm in that season of my life now. It's taken me a long time to mature to that level, but I'm present in all of those ways.
Yes.
And that's why I'm like, oh yeah, you hit it a lot.
I want to hit on this presence piece. And, the interesting part is when there is a strong Black man or a strong man that's present, you know it. So I'll go back to as a kid. I grew up in the same generation. My dad didn't say I love you until after he got sick and went through some stuff, right? But I can remember being a little kid and not being able to go to sleep. But I could hear that garage door go up and the car come in. And man, there was just something about he was there, right? So that presence didn't have to say anything, didn't have to come in and do anything. It's the presence of, I will say that's the sweetest part about if a man is confident in who he is, he will totally change the environment around it. And I'm not taking anything away from the strong women that are out there.
Absolutely.
And I think you're exactly right. The MeToo movement gave an opportunity to recalibrate some stuff that was totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just talking about when you have a confident man that is present, he doesn't have to say much. He definitely doesn't have to go out and be disrespectful or move anything. It's just the presence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to tell you, I thank you for being present today.
Mm-hmm.
I think there were some great things that you imparted to the people that will have a chance to listen to this. I feel like, honestly, Kelvin, you've been a saint in the community by working with young men for a long time. And that happened way before I heard about the counselor piece. That has been there for a long time, man.
Yeah. That's kind of what drove me into that, because like I said, this was not something I had planned to do. I had no goal of being a counselor, writing a book. It took a lot for me to write that book, for me to put on Front Street that I failed. But it's even more important that I realized that I am not a failure. I get to define what failure looks like. Yeah. And nowhere in my DNA do I see that I'm a failure, no matter what happens to me. Not a failure.
Respect that.
You hit something for me. When we turn around and we connect all the dots, we can see like those dots have gotten us to where we are today. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if people would like to sit down and talk to you or get in touch with you, can you share some information on how they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. My business name is Extended Hands Counseling.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Milton and I are so honored.
This was a pleasure. It was a pleasure for me to come. I was kind of nervous about coming, but it's the first time I've done a podcast. But hey, you guys made me feel really, really welcome, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for having me. And Miss Jackie, please let me know what you think once you read the book. I think if there's something in there for everyone, not just about my failure, but there's a place in there for you to talk about your own failure and write down. I wrote left places in there for you to write.
Yeah, I like that.
There. So
yeah, that was cool.
One of my clients said, "Hey, she read the book, and then she's going back through it again and writing, making notes about her failure and how she's overcoming those failures."
Thank you. Yes, I failed, but I am not a failure.
I am not a failure.